had the one ear off. There we go. Hello. Okay. There we go. So today I'm doing something a little bit different, adventurous, however you want to call it. Um, I don't know. To be completely honest, it's a video I watched. I like your background. Thank you. I forgot the name of the artist like who originally created this um like painting artwork. Um, but the idea of it was like in relation to momentum, like how it just kind of keeps growing and growing and growing, and it turns into a giant wave. I believe that's the concept, but I could be very wrong. Or like the inspiration, but I could be very wrong. So yeah, that's partly why I got it. But thank you. Um, so basically, I watched a very interesting video from a pretty cool creator, and it just kind of got me thinking about different things. Um, and I just thought it would be an interesting conversation, especially during a time where intellectualism is frowned upon or becoming frowned upon, or the idea of people not really wanting to think deeply about stuff as much anymore. At least from what we see on social media, kind of a feud between critically thinking and like it's not that deep type stuff. So I don't know. Thought it was an interesting video and jogged a lot of stuff in my mind, and I thought I'd like to present a bit of conversation. We're just talking to the void as well, so which is fine. But you know, we'll see. So okay. So this is the video. I am going to change the description. I forgot to actually link the video, so I am going to put a link for it later. I don't I'm not sure if I 100% have intentions of just playing this whole video because I want this creator, even though they are like a big creator, it's still important for people to get the views on their work and content. Um, so I'm definitely gonna link it in the description, and I'll show like part of it, probably talk throughout it. And in this particular setup, there is gonna be a weird black space on the screen, which just please try to ignore it as much as you can. I know I'm gonna struggle trying to ignore it. Um, but anyways, yeah, I'm gonna link this video in the description afterwards, and yeah, hope you enjoy this little conversation, I guess. Also, let me know if you can hear the video. You should be able to, but definitely let me know if it's too low, too loud, etc.
Love is a profoundly social emotion At all stages of human development, love has in different forms been an integral part of culture. Love is not in the least a private matter concerning only the two loving persons. Love possesses a uniting element which is valuable to the collective. There's an almost natural tendency for humans to assume that ideas are eternal, and that words have stable, unchanging reference. People have used the word love for thousands of years, and so we assume naturally that there's one meaning underneath all these uses of love. Yet it's clear that the concept of love does change. In the 16th century, Machiavelli asked whether it was better to be feared or loved. In the 2010s, several influential figures were saying it was better to be respected than loved. Presently, I see people asking whether it is better to be loved or understood.
Because someone can love you, but not understand you at all.
While these questions are interesting in themselves, I think it's more fundamental and thus more interesting to observe that what people deem worthy of comparison to love changes. Now, it's not that love itself changes. There is no love in the abstract. Love, like any social phenomenon, is interpreted, and so we might wonder what interpretation currently makes sense. What is so valuable such that it can rival the significance of being loved? That is a socio-historical question. Why do many view understanding as belonging to the core of love instead of other adjacent qualities like tolerance, patience, or justice? Addressing these questions give insight into current conceptions of love and our broader social structure.
Okay. So, again, not gonna play the whole video. If you are interested in this entire, it's a really good video. I enjoyed it a lot. It got me thinking, which I think is ultimately this person's goal. I also adjusted it a little bit just so you could see also the creator's name. I don't know if that's, it looks visible to me, but I don't know if it's that visible. I didn't want to just like crop that out. Um, I'm going to, because this part is talking about like the changes of like kind of like English language. The changes of English language, the changes of how we do certain things or how certain things are said based off of what is currently going on. And I'm very oversimplifying it for sure. I'm just saying this part is a bit more good background information, but the part that I do want to engage with a bit more is towards a different part in the video. And again, I think all of it is really, really valuable, but I also just don't want to play this person's like entire video. That's not that's not what I want to do here. Um, so let's see. Nope, I don't want to do that. Scroll back up. I believe it's right here.
Hungry Root is
Whoa.
the easiest way to eat healthy. Hungry Root is
That
kind of like
scared
having your
the
own
fuck
personal
out of me.
shopper and boutique.
Hi. Alright, no. Okay. So loud.
Standing.
I'm grateful for many things, and talk-based
Give me a
therapy
break.
is one of them. Because Adam and I have been through a lot.
Okay.
The individual is both a subject with the ability to change and an object constrained by static facts. I am 5'3", living in Toronto as a student, born in 2002 to two parents. I can't change many facts about myself, and that restrains my freedom. I'll never play in the WNBA, no matter how strong my will is. But as a subject, I have the power to interpret facts about my life in different ways. An event that meant a lot to me at 20 years old may no longer feel that significant anymore. An interest I used to be embarrassed of may now be reinterpreted as cool, giving me confidence that I never thought I would have. By reinterpreting facts about the self, we change how we understand and carry ourselves. But this process of reinterpretation doesn't happen alone. Much of our identity and self-conception comes from seeing ourselves through
Definitely
the
what
eyes
happened
of
with
others.
anime.
Love's gaze sees us in a particularly intimate way. It peeks through the barriers we usually put up for others. Quote, The other's look fashions my body in its nakedness, causes it to be born, sculptures it, produces it as it is, sees it as I shall never see it. The other holds a secret, the secret of what I am. Thus, love tends to change us, often unexpectedly. We may find behavior, habits, interests, and beliefs altered through a loving relationship. Different facts about our lives become salient to us depending on the self-conception we ascribe to, and our behavior will change to reflect new self-conceptions. But this entails that being understood is never guaranteed. Someone could understand you very well in the first few years of dating, but through loving each other, each person changes and actually comes to understand the other less. Sometimes lovers outgrow each other, but they also couldn't have done that growing without each other. The tension between our subjectivity and our objectivity makes it impossible to reduce people to some higher coherent principle that makes sense. Individuals are full of contradiction and rich history. Quote, what if the other is irreducible not only to my or our thought, but to thought as such? Put another way, is love reducible to a feature of the intellect like understanding? Or does love necessarily escape intellectual bounds? Sartre thought love could never be confined by understanding, which made love a failed project. Here's the dilemma. We gain a stable conception of ourselves through our lover's perception. Facing our subjectivity, our innate potential for change, that's scary. But in the eyes of love, we can escape subjectivity and feel understood as a coherent object. We think of ourselves as funny or smart or kind because our lover's treatment of us affirms that we are those things. Mundane facts like the veins on my hands, the way one's eyelashes curl, the slight gap between one's teeth. The gaze of our lover gives these facts value and thus reasons to exist. But here's the other scary part. Our lover is a subject who can change. Who's to say they will perceive me the same way forever, or even tomorrow? But if they change, then my sense of self also destabilizes.
Just
uh, I love this person's edits. This scene from I think it was called Pearl, the movie. But yeah, that's basically what I want to show. Again, I'm not about to play the whole thing. If you find this interesting as much as I did, definitely, um, give it a watch. So there's something that I wanted to show here. Hey, why is it? Okay, hold on. There we go. Little trick for you guys. If you want to get rid of the AI, you put the minus AI after whatever you're searching. Anyways, so I don't particularly like the Facebook. I mean, it's fine. I'm being picky. Anyways, so the point of which I want to start at is kind of where she was ending. Um, we could talk about the different things. Like, a lot of this will come down to perspective and could be argued as just semantics. But I do want to create a particular boundary or goalpost in what I'm going to continue saying here. And so, basically, right? Sorry, that was my elbow. The idea of love, the idea of loving someone, loving your interest, feeling love. It is all ultimately, I believe, subjective, right? And I think that's fine. Every person is able to interpret love, and want love in very different ways. But I do think that the one consistent thing about love is love does, at a certain point, make us as humans evolve. Whether it's love from other people, whether it's you loving someone else and then gaining the desire to evolve, or simply love for yourself and feeling as though you are worthy, or at minimum you are accepting certain things about yourself that you have a desire to alter. So what I have up is basically two defining words, which are kind of going to be the goalpost or a little bit of the center of this conversation. So I feel that here in this particular discussion, change and evolving, changing and evolving are two very different things. And so here, up on the screen, change implies that there is something wrong. Evolution, on the other hand, happens gradually over time and is driven by purpose. You could say it that way. There's also another one, lower. Evolution is driven by purpose and change is driven by theory. Um, Here's what I think. I believe the difference between change and evolution is not even the reason. I think change and evolution comes down to the actual process and starting point. I think change is you take something and you make it something completely different. You make it different from its origin. So that's like taking an apple and you turn it into an orange somehow, right? That to me, in this particular conversation, is what change is. To evolve or evolving, which is kind of said here a little bit, is to take that point of origin and compound upon it. So instead of turning it an apple into an orange, it's more like taking an apple and trying to make it a different color. Or taking an apple and attempting to make it sweeter. We're not taking it and turning it into a completely new thing. We're taking it and to some degree making it more complex. It's still an apple. It has now just different or arguably better qualities. And evolving is also something that in this conversation I feel automatically implies to some degree the process of turning into something. You can't evolving meaning going forward. With changing can mean a lot of things. Changing can mean maybe turning the apple into the orange wasn't a good idea. At the same time, changing can also mean turning the apple into an orange was a great idea or is completely a neutral idea. Evolving is progression forward, ultimately. And that can be negative. That can be negative in some contexts. But it can also be neutral and it can also be positive, because also this comes down to perspective. But I'm just clarifying these lines in the sand to push the conversation further forward. So, the inspiration from that video, talking about change, talking about evolving, I feel as though love does make people change and evolve. I feel as though love can sometimes even be the reason for people to grow apart. Because sometimes people completely change, and sometimes people just evolve. And I think specifying the difference between those two things can potentially add clarity. For some people, or for me, it's very clear. Just it makes sense. But for some people, maybe it's too complicated. Which is why this is kind of a conversation, because I'm interested in how other people view what I'm gonna continue saying. So I think that we as humans have a desire to be our best selves. That does not inherently mean that every human wants to keep what is currently the identifiable core of their being, meaning like morals, belief systems, etc. Those can also be completely altered. They can be different. But at that point, I feel that that is change. Evolving is those core beliefs generally having the same content, but maybe becoming more thorough, more complex, maybe having more reasons. Because as we grow, we are going to become different people. And I think when you add love into that picture, it becomes difficult for people to not only at times a lot of it letting go of the idea they have of a person, whether they thought it up themselves or it's an informed idea from experiencing as someone else. I think love is also something that is moldable. I think in order to love someone, you have to be willing to love them as the different people they become. To some degree, it's inevitable. Like you get older, you have different circumstances. It could just be life. It could just be the simple fact that you're just aging. If your intention is to be with someone for a long time, the idea of people still acting the exact same way you met them when you were much younger, to some degree, is true and not true. I think the idea of love that we currently have and why, or partly why, because other reasons, much bigger societal reasons and isms and patriarchy and whatnot, has a lot to do with our current weather around dating and relationships. Um, but I also think that there isn't enough of a desire to accept people when they change or evolve. There is a desire to want people to stay the same. And in some cases, some people are when they're much younger, they've already got a lot figured out. So maybe they don't evolve that much. But there at least is one thing that makes them a little bit different later. And so my thing is, I don't think that change or evolution ruins love. I think it is ultimately just people having the inability to love someone through that process. So the overarching thing becomes, how do you love someone through that process? And the easiest way to love someone through that process is to not only, quite frankly, have an open conversation with that person to understand, do they feel like they have done things differently or are starting to do things differently, because it can also be a perspective thing, but to also accept who they may be becoming. That doesn't mean that if they change or evolve, and now you two are incompatible, that you have to accept them and stay. Accepting them is out of love and respect. Well, respect encompasses love, in my opinion. But you're doing it out of love. You are doing it out of love for that person to say, hey, things are changing, things are evolving, things are just different. And to have an open conversation about where is this leading. And I think people are afraid also of just the unknown. If things suddenly are becoming different, how do you continue with your preconceived notions, your built-in routines, your assumptions that have been proven correct the entire time? Those are a lot of things to adjust. So in my mind, I think relationships and more divorce and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of much larger and heavier reasons and implications. But currently, just talking about emotion, talking about love, maybe also the person you're with or people you're with are having an epiphany or something about what they even think love is. Maybe the way you think of love and how they think of love has become ultimately different. And I think it's important to not only do things for the sake of that person, but also for the sake of yourself. If you intend to be in a relationship and things are going in a direction that you don't think is going to work out, it's beneficial to let that person, but also yourself, move on, and that still starts with acceptance. So, I don't think change or evolving, being different, ruins love, however. I think it can deepen it, and I think it is worthwhile. Because as you get older, depending on when you met this person, even if it's just from 40 to 50 or 40 to 60, there are still big moments that can happen in life, or small moments, that ultimately make things not what they were before. But I don't think that in itself has to ruin love. I think people, we as humans, have a hard time in ruined love. But I don't think changing or evolving is the crux of the situation. So that was my overarching thought about that portion of the video. And that's kind of just where I'm starting at. I'm curious as to what you all think. I know I said a lot, but it is also a very abstract and kind of a lot concept. Um, and I think just something worth thinking about. Because also I think sometimes we think love is doing particular things or doing things in a particular way and getting a response of someone reciprocating the feeling of love or acts, or more so specific acts of love, where love isn't about performance or chivalry. It's about you and that person's particular connection and you expressing in multiple ways how strongly and compassionately you feel about the other individual. And in order to communicate that, yes, you do have to understand them. And understanding and love is a changing thing because we will love differently over time, and people who we love will be different over time. We should be willing to be different. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'm curious on what you all think. I can see the comments. Um, so feel free to put what you want. I may play a little bit of music um, in the background, but that's pretty much my initial thoughts there. And yeah, I just want to see what you guys think. Excuse me. That is so loud. So let me turn down my headphones because it's also distracting a little bit. Nope, wrong way, wrong way. Oop, okay. So I got I got a secret message in a bottle. Um, and let me think. Okay, so I guess the overarching question. I guess the overarching question is, which is extending from the video and what I was thinking. Do you believe or feel or have experienced the changing of a person? Doesn't have to be a partner, but the changing of a person or evolving of a person ruining the love you felt for them? Do you think it's that tends to be a reason for relationships and various dynamics falling apart? And it could be a yes, it could be a no, it could be both. But I guess that's like, yeah, that's kind of the overarching thing here. And then actually, I could do this too. gotta push up my glasses. Okay. Okay, let me see. Um, I don't think it's ever ruined things, but sometimes it's a harder adjustment than just like, okay, when you love someone, you take the time to learn and love the evolve them. LOL, but can you do this? I did it. I don't know what I was supposed to do. The request has been fulfilled. Okay. I don't think it's ever ruined things. Sometimes it's a harder adjustment than just like, okay. Hmm. When you love someone, you take the time to learn and love the evolve them. Yeah, oh, I keep hitting the mic, I'm sorry. Yes, I am in the chat. I can write in the chat. I just usually don't, but I can write in the chat. Interesting. I don't think it's ever ruined things. I think love itself should be evolving. Yeah. Neither of you are going to be the same person forever. Your love should be evolving with you. Neither of you are going to be the same person forever. Your love should be evolving with you. I agree. Because also, it's kind of like when you're much younger, 10 or younger or 12, even teenager, the way you understand love at that time is different, and it should be different from how you love someone later in life. I think it's the same way with even how we love ourselves. Like self-love is not a stagnant thing either, and it's self-love and love in general is not just radical acceptance, I feel. I think acceptance is a part of the process. I don't think that we have to blatantly accept everything though. I think it's about, well, acceptance is ultimately neutral. How you choose to act after it is a personal thing. Do you think that because people have fixed mindsets about what love should be like, it primes them to see their own love as fixed, so they view it as a change and not an evolution? Interesting. Do you think because people have fixed mindsets about what love should be like, it primes them to see their love as fixed? They view it as change and not an evolution. Hmm. I think so. I think, because one way to look at it, right? Because one way to look at it is how we think about goals. We think about goals, at least in America or in Western society, we think about goals as we're here, it's here, and we are doing this. We are moving towards the goal, and we are just going to get to it also. Like, and I think that's the other thing too. Like, we'll set a, typically I hear that people, and I've done this before myself, will set goals and see them as this thing that they have to specifically achieve, and that that goal cannot be adjusted during the process. Because there's a process, there are steps that you go through to get somewhere, and as you're learning through the process of trying to reach a goal, it is natural for your goal to be different. Whether you realize the goal is too small or too big, or as you're learning, you're like, I set a really unrealistic goal and I need to set a better one. Or maybe your goal just gets more specific. But the overarching thing is that that goal becomes more achievable, ideally. And I think we think about relationships and love and a lot of things not as experiences and processes or journeys, but as a means to an end. And I think people do that with their emotions and feelings and that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying this in a negative sense. I'm just saying I think at times that can negatively impact things. Um, I feel like when people choose partners, we tend to I feel like when people choose partners, we tend to idealize things, the concept of having preferences or type, looking for certain things about a person. The concept of, hmm, I can see that. Because we're not idealizing even the person themselves and who they are, which is still not healthy. Because idealizing a person is you liking the concept of them. And so when it comes to preferences and types and that kind of thing, it becomes a problem. Because I think that having maybe certain things that you want out of a person can ultimately be okay, but maybe would be better to look at it from the angle of, instead of what I want out of this person, what this person can give me, I need a person that I know how to give to. It's kind of like boundaries. Boundaries are not about other people, they're about yourself. If someone says you're a fucking piece of shit, and you're like, hey, stop calling me a piece of shit, you can't really force people to like do or not do something, really. You can only know what you will do, how you will respond. So it's like, sure, you can try to control people, and that becomes a power struggle, trying to get what you want out of somebody. But if you take a step back and you're like, okay, this person's calling me a fucking piece of shit, I could fight them. I could argue with them or belittle them and do all these things, and I'm not saying you can't respond. But I do think ultimately your choice is like, okay, I'm gonna defend myself in an appropriate manner, which is for you to decide, not my personal choice, and proceed to leave that situation. Because a boundary is how you want to respond to something, not how you want people to respond to you. Um, so yeah, I think it becomes easy to idealize because you're thinking about what you're going to be receiving from an imaginary person, and then you project that onto people. When and it's hard to change from this. It is. But yeah, I genuinely think um, thinking about how you want to treat someone, what you're good at doing, will probably help you figure out who's compatible for you a lot better than projecting things and trying to find things in people that may not actually be there. Um, let's see. There was something I wanted to ask in relation to something further up. And here's a more general question because I'm curious. But what do you all define love to be? And that could be feeling, action, um, experience, all those things and more. The saying, to be loved is to be seen, has always stood out to me. Okay. Mm, what does it mean to be seen? To you. To you, what does that mean? Interesting. Okay. To be understood without having to say. Okay. Yeah. Kind of kind of one of those things of like, and this is me taking a guess at what you're saying. What does the arrow mean? To be understood without having to say. Um, there's a natural kind of ebb and flow. There's there comes a point where you and someone else just are able to just get it. They can look at your facial expressions or see the way that maybe you walk or something, and they know what you're maybe feeling, or they can take a guess at what you're thinking. And they know, by extension, how to help or respond. This is me taking a guess. Does that sound kind of what you're meaning, or should probably slide the chat over so I can see it better. I'm like um the way that I view love is
It's time to save during the
nope,
trade, upgrade, and save event.
I'm not doing that. Alright. I think love is. Wait, you kind of lost me. Okay, so I'm being more specific or trying. I literally mean what I said. I know you meant what you said. I know you meant what you said, but to be understood without having to say means a lot of things. Still, because like for example, is it the implication of like someone like you don't have the initial conversation? Like, do they just naturally understand you, or do they grow to understand you? And like, what to be understood without having to say? I literally meant what I said. That's so funny. Too specifically about understood. I think you're thinking too specifically about understood. Yeah, I gave specific examples. Think more about the overall feeling and state of being when it comes to being understood. Mm, mm, okay. Think more about the overall feeling and the state of being when it comes to being understood. Okay. I see what. Okay, yeah. To be understood without having to say. Okay. I'm like 60-70% there. But I do get what you're saying better now. Think more about the overall feeling and state of being when it comes to being understood. Interesting. Um, huh. I I think of love as a multifaceted and I think of it as like a multifaceted process of just dedicated learning. Dedicated learning of a person or something, someone or something. Hmm. Okay, so my next question would be would you oh, would you be willing to change for someone else? Would you be willing to change for someone else? And to be clear, I mean change in the specific context of this conversation in space. So the definition of, you know, turning an apple into an orange. No. Evolve, yes. Change, no. Okay. So my follow-up would be, would you want someone to change for you? No. Okay. Evolve, yes. Change, no. Uh-huh. Okay. Um. Hmm. Excuse me. Would I be willing to change for someone? Um. Before I say my answer, why?
If your New Year's resolution includes advancing your career,
No. Okay. Um. Yeah. Why? Both ways. Mm-mm. Um, so would I change for someone else, and would I want someone else to change for me? Overall, no. Unless there's something fundamentally morally corrupt about the person, which at that point also I just wouldn't be with them. Um, so yeah, like ultimately no. I think as people, we should all seek to improve. And if there are things that I can improve that would benefit my relationship, totally, I would give it my all, and I would hope they would too. And in that way, no one would make anyone change. We're doing it for ourselves and because we care for each other. Interesting. Very emotionally conscious viewer. Um, for me, it's a pretty similar thing. I think in that sense is very important. I also think in the sense of I'm just not going to promise or say I can do something that I can't. And if someone is wanting me to be at the core of who I am, not that, I know even if I tried, I would not be successful and I would let that person down. And by extension, I'm not about to ask somebody else to do that. At that point, if either of us feel like the other has to change, then we just need to go our separate ways, which is the healthier thing to do. Thanks. You are very welcome. So yeah, I'm very much so just, if I can't do something, I'm not about to have someone else do it. And also, I can't take the standards and stuff that I have for myself and put it to someone else either. We're two or more very different people. Excuse me. My final question, and then I'm going to wrap up. But my final question is, if you could evolve into your best self, but it meant letting someone go, someone you love, someone you care about, would you do it? Would you still do it? Probably not. It would torment me. um, Evolving into your best self meant letting go of someone you love. Would you do it? I think that right now in my life, I probably wouldn't. Truthfully, I probably wouldn't. Because if me evolving and I already have a good relationship with someone, and me evolving sacrifices that dynamic, which also in my mind would be a pretty long standing dynamic. I think, and honestly I know because I've done it, that there are certain things that me personally I would be willing to sacrifice for the sake of continuing and holding on to a good relationship, a good dynamic. And it's not because, oh, you're not going to find anyone else. It's not about finding anyone else. If we want to talk specifically romantic as well, it's not about finding any or like dating. Um, yeah, it's not about finding someone else. It's about valuing or finding the worth in that relationship in that person. So there's certain things I'm willing to sacrifice to continue being able to be around them. Um, yeah, because ideally, which is possible, my best self, I would like to believe, wouldn't come at the cost of or contradict the people I love. Because also, life doesn't have to be about being your absolute highest and better self as well. Because at that point, it's less about being a human being and, trying your best and like perfectionism. And perfectionism is just uh, not real. I totally agree. I feel like the people I've chosen are so special and kind and pure. How would me being better mean parting from them? Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's also maybe part of it too, which is what you feel makes you a better person. Mm. I love you too. um, yeah. I'm just making sure I give time to like see comments. Are there any questions that y'all want to ask? Y'all want to discuss before wrapping up? My nose is so itchy. Keep forgetting to turn the music back on. I love you too. Just giving time in case anyone's typing. Any questions? Any questions? Dun, 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 dun. I'm most likely saying a sentence out, saying a thought out loud. My bad. Okay. I haven't seen anything, so I think I'm gonna call it here, because I also need to sleep soon and probably eat something. Hey, and also my butt's starting to hurt. But yeah. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the conversation and entertaining my thing of just trying something different. I had thoughts on my mind and I was like, well, let's try this. So I really hope you all had a good time. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in and peace.